Welcome everyone to Breakfast on the Bay, hosted by Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. We will get started in just a moment. I'm going to let a few people hop on here. All right. Welcome to everyone that's joining. I'm going to get started in just a moment. All right, go ahead and get started. Welcome to Breakfast on the Bay, a signature live talk summer series that celebrates the 18 million communities, companies, and conservationists who live, work, and play in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. This year, the Alliance is celebrating our 50th anniversary, 5 decades of convening diverse voices and leveraging resources to implement solutions for clean water in your local streams and rivers, and ultimately reaching the Chesapeake Bay. The Alliance works in 4 program areas: agriculture, forests, green infrastructure, and stewardship and engagement across the 64,000 square mile Chesapeake Bay watershed. We have offices in Annapolis, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. As an organization, we value collaboration. We believe in partnering across sectors and regions to achieve a larger collective impact. Inclusive. We are partners who demonstrate integrity and amplify diverse voices for an equitable impact. Results-driven. We drive with data, promote informed action, and hold ourselves and our partners accountable for measurable impact. In celebration of our 50th anniversary, we are bringing 50 stories to life. Each story features individuals, projects, ideas, places, and partnerships representing 5 decades of restored lands and waters in the Chesapeake Bay. I will share access to these inspiring stories in the chat. If you are joining us on Zoom and have any questions throughout the event, please click the chat button at the bottom of your screen. A chat box will open. Here, you can send any and all questions and comments. Be sure to select everyone from the drop-down menu. Please take a moment now to type in the chat where you're joining us from. If you are joining us from Facebook, you can share your questions and comments in the box to the right of the screen. Lastly, thank you to our donors who have made this talk possible. Our 50 years of on-the-ground work would not be possible without you. In honor of our 50th anniversary, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donations made to the Alliance this summer. If you would like to become a donor and immediately double your gift, please visit allianceforthebay.org/donate. Just $5 a month can make an impact on the most productive estuary in the United States. If you are interested in other Breakfast on the Bay talks, please visit our website, allianceforthebay.org/breakfastonthebay to see a full list of events and registration links. And now on to today's event. Clean water is the most important ingredient to brewing beer. Alewerks Brewing Company brewers work hard to craft balanced, nuanced beers that are faithful to their traditional style. The result is a diverse portfolio of consistent quality that keeps people coming back year after year. Today, we welcome Nisa Dean, our Virginia State Director, and Michael Clear, Operations Director at Aleweks Brewing Company. Michael, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Hi, my name, as you said, I'm Michael, Operations Director for Aleweks Brewing Company. I was fortunate enough to get to work with the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay back in the long ago time known as 2019, when we partnered for Crab Cake Week here in Williamsburg. Alewerks opened in 2006. It was not a very popular time for craft beer, and it was a lot of lean years, struggling to get by and to stay afloat. In the past decade, craft beer has exploded in not just Virginia and Maryland, the East Coast, but all over the United States. And we were very fortunate that in 2012, the Virginia State Senate passed Senate Bill 604, which allowed us to serve pints to guests here at the facility and create, in effect, what we now know as tap rooms. There are over 300 tap rooms now operating in Virginia alone. The that helped Alewerks a lot. It enabled us to really start on a path toward growth. I joined the company in 2015, and one of the first projects we focused on was a refresh of our brand and essentially starting a new era for Alewerks. The effect of that refresh was that was a lot of new brands, but there were two that stayed untouched: Tavern Brown Ale, the first beer that we ever brewed, and Chesapeake Pale Ale, one of the first beers that we ever brewed. And we're very proud of that beer. We're very proud of our association with the Chesapeake Bay. Proud to be a part of the environment and the watershed of it. And we also brew a beer called York River Oyster Stout that we've worked with local oyster growers, specifically Tommy Leggett. And also last year, during the pandemic, we brewed a beer in the top left of your screen that you can see called Absolute Uncertainty. And this was a beer to raise money for out of work folks in the hospitality industry. Later in the year, we were awarded with the Virginia Restaurant Leisure and Tourism Association's Brewery of the Year Award. In 2019, we reached our max capacity and could not get another drop of beer out our doors. And that's when we began an expansion plan to grow the footprint of our production facility for the first time. Sorry, I got interrupted there. We hit a bit of a snag in early 2020 with our expansion plans as a little thing known as COVID happened. All of a sudden we had to pivot. All of our business model changed, and we went from producing a lot of draft beer. 40% of our beer was in kegs, and all of a sudden all of the restaurants and attractions and events were closed, and we started putting over 90% of our beer into bottles and cans. And what happened was it highlighted a lot of inefficiencies in our production and showed us that there was a lot more improving that we could do in terms of making our beer environmentally sustainable. On your screen right now are some numbers for reference, because I'm sure they're going to come up later. Our unit of measurement in our industry is known as the barrel. 1 barrel of beer equals 31 gallons, which, and some of you may understand a little easier, as 248 pints. And as Lauren pointed out, beer is almost all water. And so it takes a lot of water to do what we do. And we are more and more focused every day on being a sustainable company that has the lowest possible net effect on our environment. And now we have a video tour to show you more about the brewing process and how it's made.
Hi, I'm Jeff Logan, brewmaster and managing member here at Alewerks Brewing Company. I'm essentially responsible for writing recipes and setting the long-term vision.
Hi, and I'm Kyle Meyerhoff, lead brewer here at Alewerks Brewing Company. I oversee production and help facilitate meeting our schedule, our goals, and making sure the beer comes out nice and tasty. Alewerks Brewing Company was founded in 2006 by Chuck Haynes, a retired Army vet and a good beer enthusiast. Our first brand was Tavern Brown Ale, and it was still brewed today and brewed on our Pugsley Peter Austin brewing system, which we still use today. We started as just a couple hundred barrel a year brewery, brewing occasionally, to pushing at 10,000 barrels and brewing 2-3 batches every day. Our brew days here at Alewerks Brewing Company usually start with this tank behind me. This is our mash tun, where our opening shift brewer will dump about 2,000 pounds or more of grain, dried, crushed malt into it, mixing it with hot water. And it is a very unautomated brewing system we have here at Alewerks Brewing Company. So Rob, our morning brewer, will have a giant stainless steel rake, and he's hand turning, mixing those malts and grains with our hot water, making sure that some chemistry happens and starches are broken down into those fermentable sugars that we want those yeast to eat later on. And we'll move all of this wort, is what it's called. Once you mix this grain with this water, it's wort. We'll move it into our boil kettle, which is a brick-clad direct fire system, one of the few on the East Coast and the United States that we've been using since the very beginning here at Alewerks Brewing Company. And our boil kettle is where we'll boil for an hour. We'll add the hops there, the tasty hops. And from there, we need to cool this wort very quickly. So after the boil, we'll shoot it through what's known as a heat exchanger. Kind of works like a car radiator, where we pump cold water through one direction, the hot wort another direction, and it'll instantly cool that wort from 212 degrees down to a nice cool 70 or so. One of the cool things about our brewing system is we recapture all that cooling water, and it dumps that water into our hot liquor tank. Liquor is another word for water here in the brewing industry. So we recapture that water so we can use it again for further brewing or cleaning, whatever the process may be. After the brewing process is all done, as I said, we cooled that wort. We're shooting into one of these guys. These are our fermenters. Here at Alewerks, we have 10 60-barrel, 5 30-barrel, and a couple 10-barrel fermenters. A barrel is 31 gallons, so these guys hold quite a bit of beer in them. It's in here that we pitch the yeast. That stuff that eats all those sugars and makes that alcohol and sometimes gets some carbonation on the beer for us. It'll sit in the fermenters for about 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on how big the beer is that we're brewing. In this process, we have glycol, which keeps the tanks nice and cool, about 68 to 70 degrees. And when we're ready for that yeast to come out of suspension and they're done eating, we'll lower the beer to 32 degrees. It's not freezing because of the alcohol content in there, but it'll get all that particulate settle out so we get a nice crisp beer in the tank. After spending about 2 weeks in the fermenters, we then move the beer over to what we call bright tanks. Here at Alewerks, we have 2 60-barrel and 2 30-barrel bright tanks. 60-barrel being 2 batches worth, 30s being 1 batch worth. And these are the tanks that keep the beer nice and cold and force carbonate. We're now here in our packaging half of our brewery. We've had some renovations and innovations over the years on this half and have really kicked up our production. Standing behind me is our new to us Guy Model 3003 rotary bottler. This bad boy can spit out a case of beer at max speed about 45 seconds, give or take a case, and we can pump out in a day a couple batches of beer. So it's been a great innovation and improvement. The bottles will run through, get sanitized, get filled, capped, and then the guys will hand build and package boxes, and then we tape them and put them on a pallet to get shipped out to distributors. This is our Yampa canner from Twin Monkeys. This thing has been a godsend for us. It can do 16-ounce cans or 12-ounce cans and a bunch of other sizes. Pumps out about 22 cans a minute, which is perfect for our smaller batches. So we can get some one-offs packaged for all the fans and production out there. Things that just aren't quite big enough for our bottler here.
Thank you for joining us on this tour today. Come see our brewery and tap room for yourself here in Waynesburg, Virginia.
Cheers.
Well, I was a fan of the end of that. I thought maybe not everyone is clear on what exactly is a craft brewer. A craft brewer is defined by essentially our guild, the Brewers Association, as small, meaning their annual production of 6 million barrels of beer or less. You might remember I said we're projected to do 9,000 barrels this year, which actually puts us, one of the bigger craft breweries in Virginia. Must be independent. Less than 25% of the company can be owned by a business, beverage alcohol industry member that is not a craft brewer. And of course, legally have to be registered with the federal government and have a TTB brewer's notice. As I mentioned before, the last decade saw an explosion in craft breweries. We're at well over 8,000. And there was a lot of concern at the beginning of the pandemic that it would result in a lot of brewery closings. But actually in 2020, more craft breweries opened in the United States than closed. So while growth has slowed. It is still a growing industry. Virginia and Maryland combined for nearly $3 billion economic impact from their craft breweries, with 297. This was at the end of 2020, but it has grown to over 300 now, and 121 craft breweries in the state of Maryland. So I showed you the graph with the explosion of craft breweries because while a craft brewery like us is definitely a small company, we have a big impact on the environment. And the common accepted volumes is that a craft brewery uses 3 to 10 gallons of beer or gallons of water to make 1 gallon of beer, with the average being right around the 7 gallons of water to 1 gallon of beer mark. This chart shows breweries in our range of 1 to 10,000 barrels annually, and I am very happy that I can say that Alewerks as right around a 5.7 to 1 ratio of gallons of water to gallons of beer. We've been able, over the last several years, to lessen our impact, and now all of our growth plans are focused around decreasing that number. In the short term, we'd like to get to under 5 gallons immediately, with the goal of getting down to 3 gallons by the end of the next 5 years. So major concerns with all these craft breweries is water availability. We're actually very fortunate here in Virginia that our industry is not facing a water shortage. Some of you may be aware of a very big California craft brewery called Sierra Nevada. 5, 6, 7 years ago, they opened a facility near Asheville in North Carolina because they could not grow in California and had to add a facility on the East Coast, and for many other reasons. But one of the reasons that came into play with that move was access to water. And obviously, all of this excess water is going somewhere. And so we're hyper aware of the effect on our wastewater, and we actually take a lot of steps to treat the water before it goes out. So one of, I would say that over our growth the last 5 years, where we've doubled the amount of beer that we made, we weren't as focused on environmental sustainability as we wanted to be. And one of the biggest hurdles that faces a lot of breweries is waiting for the financial sustainability to match your intentions with wanting to be a good steward for the environment. So now Alewerks is at a point where we can start to look at our sustainability improvements as basically affecting the triple bottom line, where there's a positive impact to the environment, obviously a positive impact in the community and in the perception of our company and our brand, but also we're finally getting to the point where there's an economic impact as well, and we can start to see growth from our sustainability efforts, which I wish that we were more noble, but you have to stay in business for your business to have a positive impact. Some of the things that we are currently doing, that we have done in the recent past to make improvements, is when we expanded our production space, we chose for upgraded insulation. Our brewers, I'm glad they didn't show you, that's not as attractive, is our wastewater treatment capabilities. All of the liquid leaving the brewery that's not in a bottle, a can, or a keg goes to a tank, and where it is treated and processed before going into the local wastewater facility. If you are interested in the science of that, I am going to disappoint you because I do not understand what they do, but I know that those guys with those science degrees do know what they're doing. And in addition, we have a great relationship with the local wastewater treatment company, meeting with them at least annually to review our operations. And we're very grateful that they are so helpful in helping us manage and minimizing our impact on the environment. We take advantage of flow meters to monitor usage, testing the concentration of our cleaning solutions to minimize the amount of water that we use. Not directly related to water, but we've reduced use of plastics in our packaging, opting for a paperboard can collar for our can 4-packs. Also, all of our there's a ton of spent grain that comes out of the brewery, and we partner with local farmers, and they take that and use it as feed for their animals, and that reduces water usage and fuel usage for their farm equipment. So there is a net positive impact there. Some of the things part of our future plans include solar panels. We are working on a project now to build an additional 5,000 square foot production facility next to our current brewery. And we are working with the architects and designers with a focus on creating a green building that, in addition to being a useful production space for us, can be kind of set the template for what a green warehouse can be in this area. And then also we'll have improvements, extra equipment improvements. Kyle in the video mentioned our brew house, which is the largest manual brew house you can work with. Anything bigger, anything made recently is going to be much more automated, which can actually improve, decrease our water usage in that process. And we're looking at getting a CIP system. CIP stands for clean and in place. And that would allow us to reuse the chemicals in the water multiple times when cleaning tanks, and where it holds the solution in the tank and monitors it, only adding chemicals in water as needed to keep the concentration. And then we're fortunate to have an investor who wants to partner with us on capturing carbon dioxide. Obviously not water related, but everything we can do helps. So we're beginning the process on figuring out how to add that to our facility, where we spend a ton of money on carbon dioxide for the beer. And if we can trap it and convert it and create it ourselves, obviously that would have a financial benefit to us, but it would also help environmentally, reducing fuel costs and several other areas. And then I mentioned our Brewers Association, and they're a fantastic association. And we are working on a sustainability study currently, which is our biggest process underway right now, utilizing tools that they provide to analyze our utility usage, and will help us highlight ways that we can improve our business. And with that, I'm wondering if you guys have any questions.
That's great, Michael. Thank you for sharing all of that information with us. It looks like you all are really putting a lot of emphasis on, as much as you can anyway, on sustainability throughout your model. I noticed too that you all are a member of Virginia Green. Can you talk a little bit about that and what prompted that? I don't know if many of our audience members know what that is.
There's a association that certifies businesses as Virginia Green businesses, and one of the members of our team that is focused on sustainability pointed out that how close we were to fulfilling all of their requirements. Few of the things that they look at that we have. You have to provide evidence that you have a green team or some director or someone leading the charge on sustainability. That we utilize recycling, which there's a ton of recycling. No polystyrene. That you have efforts in place to minimize water and electricity usage, and one of the things is like this, having some consumer engagement. So this actually qualifies to make us a Virginia Green business, and that was we were already doing most of those things. We were already it didn't take a lot to like make sure that we qualified, and because it was already part of our culture around here.
That's great. So I just saw one of the questions that came into the chat was how Alewerks and the Alliance first partnered. So I can give a little bit of background on that and then let you also add in your 2 cents. So the Alliance back in, I don't know, was it 2018? I guess held our first ever Crab Cake Week as an effort to help the public understand the link between healthy, clean water, clean Chesapeake Bay, and the food that we eat. And part of the process there was engaging restaurants and businesses that were also had an eye on sustainability and healthy water quality, and who served things that emphasized production, food production and otherwise for the Chesapeake Bay or from the Chesapeake Bay. And so we, of course, Adam and I, one of the staff members in our Virginia office, have enjoyed our share of Chesapeake Pale Ale over the years and thought how cool it would be to talk to Alewerks and see if they were interested in partnering. And so I think that was the beginning of our partnership. You want to fill in?
Oh yeah, that I just remember that because you had done it in Richmond and we were bringing it to Williamsburg, but it was very last minute, and it did minimize like the impact, but I thought it actually added to the energy, and we definitely had big plans. I think if I remember correctly, in 2020, I think we had a meeting scheduled before. And then had to say, I don't think we're going to be able to do this, at least not this spring. So
That's
hopefully
right.
we get to bring that back to Williamsburg. I actually have had some people reach out about it.
Yeah, that's right. We definitely hoped that we could do it again. Our idea was that it would be an annual event, and that first year, I guess in 2019, I guess we started talking maybe in 2018, but was that we would hold that event every year. But COVID really put a wrench in the works. So we're hoping that as people recover and get back out, that we can continue that partnership and continue to elevate the good sustainability goals that Alewerks has through that work. We have another question here in the chat for you, Michael. Is there a significant difference in the water usage between packaging and bottles versus cans?
In general, no. For our particular canning and bottling line, the canner is not as modern, well, not as advanced as a model, so it does have higher waste. The good news there is we've put the down payment on an improved canning line, and we'll be having that operational by the end of the year. And that's going to not only improve the quality of the beer that's being canned, but reduce water usage and electricity, actually.
That's great. Do you use any herbs in the brewing process for taste? And how do you use locally grown hops?
So there's not a ton of hops grown in Virginia. Hops are kind of like grapes. The terroir kind of determines what can be grown. So we do a beer annually that is strictly made with Virginia grown hops. the last farmer that we partnered with is on the Eastern Shore, and unfortunately their name, I think Seaside Hops, or forgive me, there's a lot of hop companies. Yeah, so we brewed that last year, and hope to do it again sometime this fall. So the herbs, depending, I mean, we do use a lot of different flavors in our beer. Much to the chagrin of our brewmaster at times, who's very much a traditionalist. But he is the one who still creates these recipes, so he deserves part of the blame. Arguably one of our most popular beers is our pumpkin ale, which is actually made with squash that is seasoned and baked in an oven, and then that gets included in the boiling process. And then later, after the beer is fermented, we actually add a blend of spices to the beer. It is really the most like authentic tasting pumpkin ale, in the sense that it tastes like pumpkin pie in a glass. But we use a lot of different seasonings and flavors. The entire like whole herbs probably would not be safe to brew with. We generally have to work with things that have been through a process to make sure that they cannot contaminate the beer.
That makes sense. So as you look forward and into the future with your sustainability goals, do you have any specific water reduction, carbon reduction, or otherwise goals that you've established?
Well, a lot of the focus has been on water, coincidentally, for this conversation today. But short term, we want to get below 5 gallons of water per gallon of beer, which for a brewery of our size would be a huge step. And ultimately, over the next 5 years, we want to make continued improvements to get us down to the 3 gallon threshold, which is generally the lowest that you can possibly get to. One of the things I look forward to is getting improving our wastewater facility, which usually is not financially sustainable until you get to probably 10 times our size. But where we treat our wastewater now, it's a very manual and simple system. But one of the things I'm jealous about other breweries that in their wastewater treatment, they actually trap methane gas, which they then use to power generators to power the building. So that is on the wish list.
I imagine that process is not cheap. Well,
Each
what
step
can
gets
we?
more and more expensive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what can the Alliance and our audience do to help Alewerks achieve your sustainability goals?
You know, I work for companies of a lot of different sizes, and Alewerks we're about 30 to 33 people, depending on the time of year. And what works best for us is what our team organically gets on board with. And I feel like sometimes I struggle to deliver the message to our staff. I'm not sure if there's, and this is probably thinking too big, but like targeting industries who have a large impact and finding a way to educate them, not just the businesses, but their actual staff and their people and the people making the beer and serving the beer. And because I know that if there's about 3 of us who are hyper focused on this right now, and if we could turn that 3 into 20, this whole project would become an unstoppable train.
Well, I think we'd be happy to try and help with that. Maybe there's another project in the works for us in the future.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm almost hesitant to admit this, but there is something to be done with our Chesapeake Pale Ale, and I haven't figured it out yet. And we've been debating recently, like, how do we, while no one can claim the Chesapeake Bay. Like, how can we use what we've got, which is essentially a claim on the Chesapeake name and craft beer in Virginia, and do something with that? I feel like it's irresponsible to use the name and not specifically use it in a way that can benefit the Bay and the watershed. So my contact information is not hard to find if anyone on here has any idea.
Great. Well, we look forward to continuing to work with you and see what we can do to help elevate the good work that you're doing, and of course your brand. I know we all enjoy it quite a bit. So are there any other questions out there? I don't see any others popping up into the chat here on Zoom. Do you have anything else, Michael, that you'd like to share with the group?
No, I don't think I do.
All right.
I had one number. I had one statistic that I didn't say. This was that kind of blew me away, because I started reading about, so California, I think, makes the most craft beer, and this was even 8-9 years ago, that they had used 24.5 million gallons of water to make the beer that was produced. I think this was 2012 numbers, and I felt so guilty, and I'm like, this is not sustainable. This is not good. And then I read that the California almond industry used 1.1 trillion gallons, and I said, oh, okay, so we're not the worst.
That's true. Almonds are incredibly intensive environmentally and resource-wise to grow and make almond milk from, and all of the great products that we enjoy. Yeah. Well, I think with that, I don't see any other questions. We encourage all of our participants to visit Alewerks website for more information. Also visit the Alliance's website, and reach out to us individually or together if you all have other questions or partnership ideas. We'd be happy to continue our work in this area. So, all right, Lauren, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael, Nisa, this was fantastic. It was just awesome to learn about something that's local in our watershed, and also just something that we can all recreationally enjoy safely, of course, but fantastic talk. And it's an awesome discussion to start and to be having and to continue to have into the future. To our attendees, thank you for joining us for our Breakfast on the Bay series. Once again, we'd like to thank our donors who have made this talk possible. In honor of 50 years of on-the-ground work, our generous donors have provided a $25,000 gift to match any donations made to the Alliance this summer. Your donation will be matched 1-for-1. Help us double this matching gift so we can continue to restore the lands and waters of the Chesapeake Bay for the next 50 years. If you are interested in other Breakfast on the Bay talks, you can visit our website at allianceforthebay.org/Breakfast on the Bay to see a full list of events and registration links. A recording will be available after the talk, and anybody that is attending or that unfortunately was not able to attend this morning, you will get a link to that. And I hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you again, both Nisa and Michael. We really appreciated your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Michael.
You too.